All righty, looks like we're
Hello.
live. All right.
Yes, we are.
Hello, folks. Um, Welcome to a somewhat surprise. No, it's not somewhat. It was a surprise to me when you
Mhm.
reached out about potentially doing this. But,
I
but
sprung it on you. We can be transparent. I sprung this on you yesterday.
it's okay. I only had one other thing planned, which I did this morning. We went kayaking
Oh,
out on the
nice.
lake, so got a little bit of that going on. But yeah, so welcome, folks. I had been toying with the idea about doing live streams with other content creators, and I kind of figured the best place to start would be from people who watch the channel, like what I do. And I connected with Paul here because we actually happen to live pretty close to each other. Paul, why don't you give a little bit of introduction to yourself for those that might not know you?
Sure. So, my style of what I do online is drastically different than what Steven does because I'm more focused on, I don't want to say practical things, but I don't really talk about film or media or cinema. I'm mostly working with outdoorsy stuff. So, firearms, survival gear, camping gear. I've written for a number of years for a website, and then I started doing YouTube more as a thing after I had a bad car accident last year, and I was stationary more. However, as can be seen behind me, I've been a longtime Bond fan. So I found Steven's channel probably about 2 years ago, and I really enjoyed Steven's very analytical view into the films. And it didn't hurt that we also have very similar opinions for a lot of the films and a lot of the books and the other pieces of Bond media. So it was serendipitous that we both live within a 45-minute drive of each other in this massive country that we live in.
Yeah.
So, yep. And I'll drop a comment at some point. So if people want to find my channel, I know you tagged it when you did the live stream post, but I'll drop some comments in the live stream. So people want to find my stuff, you can do it that way.
Yeah. So once I started doing, because I read pretty much every comment that gets posted on all the videos. I'm not big enough and getting enough constant stream of comments on these videos to say that's too much for me. So Paul, I had seen a number of times on various videos commenting on things. And so when I did, when I set up the Instagram and the Discord stuff, Paul was one of the first. I think you were actually the first to jump in on that. So we got to, so we got to chatting about various things, and come to find out we live pretty close to each other. So we've been hanging out a little bit, and it's just been nice to actually have a physical person to talk to Bond about. I know I mentioned it in some other videos, but I basically grew up for 20 years being the only Bond fan that knew this stuff well enough to want to have conversations about it. The closest I got was when Casino Royale came out, because then everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, James Bond is back. But when I try and talk to them, they're like, yeah, I only watched one Pierce Brosnan, and my dad was a Connery fan, but that was as far as the conversation went. And I was like, dang it. Because with everything else I like, I at least have one person close to me I can talk about that with. My wife is a big Star Wars fan, so we can talk about all that stuff. My brother's also a big Star Wars fan. If I wanted to talk about Lord of the Rings, we could talk about that, Star Trek, things like that. But no, this is primarily to talk about James Bond stuff. And thankfully, there has been a few things that have been showing up in the last few weeks that we can actually talk about.
It's like last 3 days.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's one other thing I know I did mention with somebody else that is important to me, and you and I have had a conversation about it too, which we'll get to. But basically, the way this live chat's going to go, we're going to discuss a couple of the recent bits of news that have been coming forth about really 007 First Light, our first proper video game in 13 years of James Bond. And then after we get done through some of those, if we see questions or comments from you guys that we'd like to discuss, we can do that. But then other than that, we're going to try and spice it up and have a couple of fun things that Paul and I like to talk about, such as hypothetical discussions. How would I tweak a film to make it a little bit better? Or What are our thoughts on some of these things? So actually, before we do 007 First Light, I would assume most of the people watching have at least seen one of the videos that I have done and are fairly familiar with my views on Bond films. So why don't we pass the baton over to you? Tell the 8 people watching right now, what sort of tweaks your interest about Bond? What actors do you tend to gravitate towards? Favorite film, things like that.
See, I am very thankful that, you mentioned that when you were growing up and when you got into Bond, you didn't have any friends or family that were into Bond. I had one, which was my father, right? And my dad's a big Roger Moore fan. So he showed me the Roger Moore films when I was far too young to be watching Bond films. And it went from there. But my dad is one of the old guys who isn't, this one actor is the only actor. All the other ones are garbage. And that's kind of influenced how I feel. Every actor has a film that I like or dislike. Even George Lazenby, I like parts of Majesties and dislike some parts of Majesties. So it's one of those things where my taste is, I kind of like the more centered, grounded Bond films. I'd rather go watch a Casino Royale 2006 over a Moonraker, which we've talked about a fair bit. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, I like all of the actors. Much like you, I do believe that there is something of merit in every film. Yesterday, when I told you I did this yesterday, I watched my least favorite Eon Bond film just to kind of see if I could glean some more value from it. And I did. I did a little bit.
Nice.
So it's one of those things there. But as a Bond fan, I enjoy the films, all of them, even the ones I like less. It just means I watch them less frequently. I've been recently reading all of the books and enjoying them, even the bad books. And it's just been a fun thing between the films, the all of the accoutrement that comes with Bond stuff. It could be watches, it could be the cool posters and whatnot. I've always enjoyed it. So I'd like to think that I'm someone that tries to give every Bond media thing a fair shake.
And I find it's a peaceful life.
Oh, absolutely.
Not that I don't pay attention to what other people say about something before I get to it, but for the most part, I never know how I'm going to react to it until I give it a chance. I might think it's hot garbage, or I might really like it. I won't know.
Mm-hmm.
And Bond is such a roller coaster, because there are films I shouldn't like that I absolutely do, and vice versa.
And that's the thing. We've talked about this. I have 2 No Time to Die things. One here, one over this way. Yeah. I'm the biggest No Time to Die fan that I personally know. Yeah. which surprises a lot of people, but I got a ton of value out of that film, and there's more and more that I like every time I watch it. But that's part of being a Bond fan. For our viewers here, I've written for a website for a long time. Oh, my good buddy Matt's here in chat, Hipster Tactical. Matt knows my editor Dan. Dan's also a Bond fan, and one of his guilty pleasures is that he really likes Die Another Day. That's one that he really likes a lot. And you know what? Hey, if you really like it, I really like that.
Yeah, no, I think Die Another Day is a very, very messy film, but I could also say that of No Time to Die, which I don't like it quite as much as you do, but I do I am one of the defenders of it. Which is part of the reason that the last live stream I did, which I do have a link to it on my channel, was a watch party with video tasties of No Time to Die. And it was funny because he initially didn't care for the film. And so I thought that would be kind of a nice contrast, a defender versus a naysayer. But he went out and bought the film just before the live stream and watched it himself. And he was like, I actually really enjoyed it. So that was fun. So, no, this is great. Craig films, both Paul and I are fairly positive about them, even if we will absolutely talk trash about a couple of things about them.
Spectre. Spectre is a snooze fest.
Spectre to me is the hardest one to try to view that positively, because even A View to a Kill, which I pegged lower the last time I did a ranking, it goes neck and neck. Spectre, I think, is just boring and has some very questionable creative choices. But, there are at least a couple of things about it that I'm like, yeah, no, I'm there for it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is that I think that disappointing to me might be worse than bad. but I think I would sooner watch Spectre again before going back to A View to a Kill. And I say that not just because I watched A View to a Kill yesterday, but I'm less likely to fall asleep during Spectre. Not that I'm unlikely to fall asleep. I'm less likely to fall asleep.
Yeah. So hopefully that gives you guys watching some sort of an idea as to where Paul and I land on things, so that we can get to talking about this. So let's address the big thing that every other Bond creator is talking about now. New video game, First Light. Trailer dropped 2 or 3 days ago as part of a PlayStation showcase.
Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah.
I think it was Wednesday because I was actually at work overseeing some patrons doing a session, and it dropped. And so I was like, oh, I can probably take a couple of minutes and watch this thing. So do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first on it?
Oh, I'm happy to go first because I think my opinions on it are probably a little bit shorter. I am cautiously optimistic. IO has done a good job with the recent decade of Hitman games, albeit that it feels like they're putting out a lot of stuff, and a lot of the Hitman content has been kind of hit or miss. I don't know how much of it you've played. I've played a good chunk of it, and some of the maps are really good, some are kind of questionable. But I think if anyone was going to make a Bond game that we might like, it would be them at this point. I think they are the studio to do it. As for the trailer itself, my only gripe is that I felt like it was a little too action heavy. I'd like to see more, kind of like all the parts of Bond games that we enjoy, where it's not just gunfights and shootouts. It's, the parts in Nightfire, or, where it's like going through the like the setup mission. Like, I want to see more of just the low key Bond stuff. And I get that we really like Everything or Nothing and the From Russia with Love game, and those are both very action heavy. But like, I would have liked a little bit more low key time in both of those. So I hope that there's more low key stuff than what they show in the trailer. And I'm not necessarily happy that we have even more Majesty stuff in the game after the last film was very Majesty heavy. So, which I don't dislike it. Majesties is a top 10 film for me, like 6 or 7 ranking. I really like it. But the last film, was leaned so hard onto it. And now the game has the Aston Martin from that film. It has part of the soundtrack from Majesties again. And it's like, do we have to keep going back to the same film? We have 24 other official films we could choose from. But otherwise, again, cautiously optimistic. Until the game's out, I don't really have concrete opinions on it.
Right. No, I can't say at this point whether it's going to be good or not. I think anybody that's leaping to that is just going off of supposition, off of past evidence. My only experience with Hitman, I tried a demo of one of them. Couldn't really get into it, but it wasn't the first one. I think it was the third one. I did a demo of that. And
this is the confusing thing. The third recent one or the original third one from like 20 years ago?
Recent. Okay. Because I specifically went to look for IO Interactive, knowing that this was coming up. So I tried a little bit of that, couldn't quite get into it, but I also acknowledge that like maybe I just started on the wrong foot with it. Because when I get into a series, I like to start from the beginning and go through, or find the one that's like the easiest to get into. But yeah, I've been starving for a proper Bond game. I'm sort of with you. As much as I like GoldenEye, as much as I like Everything or Nothing or From Russia with Love, I want the sequences where Bond's walking through with a tuxedo, just talking to various people. I want the mission set up. I want, like, those can be covered, of course, in cutscenes, but like, we need to feel like there's story breaks here.
Absolutely.
For us to feel like we're getting a proper Bond thing. And the thing I'm most excited about this whole thing, I am very familiar and absolutely adore the Batman Arkham series. And I jumped on that right about when it came out, 2009.
Sure.
And the main thing that I like that Arkham set a precedent for with these licensed games is to have its own version of the character with its own continuity, separate from the films. The thing I like about that is that they can help each other a little bit in exposure, but they are primarily independent, so that if the films aren't doing so great, I still have the games to go to, and vice versa. Marvel Spider-Man did the same thing, of creating its own version of that character. It includes nods to the films, much like the Arkham games. And I hope that's what IO Interactive is trying to do with this, set themselves apart, do its own 007 universe, where we don't have to expect things happening just because they happen in the films. I'm really interested to see them go their own way with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with Hitman, it's always been a kind of obtuse game series. If you go back to the first game from, 23 years ago, it's very obtuse. But I would say if you wanted to get into Hitman, the Hitman Blood Money, which is now, oh goodness, 19 years old, that game recently had a Switch port that was kind of bad, but it's on Xbox and all of that, and it works pretty well. That one's a good point to see what they do. The thing with the Hitman games is that it's not rolling gunfights. It's trying to be a little bit more tactical with planning things out. And I think that the trailer led in with the action because people are expecting an action-heavy thing, because I think maybe the modern perception of Bond is heavy on the action, right? As someone who's been a fan, my perception of Bond is, relaxed moments
more
with
balanced.
very, very quick. Yeah, where our fight scenes aren't a half an hour long. It's going to be, chill. Oh, Bond does something really quickly. That's the action. I want to see more stuff inspired by the literature Bond, or the written Bond from Fleming and from the good continuation writers. And I wouldn't mind seeing some of what really made Casino Royale special to show up again. Right? Casino Royale is not it seems like it's action heavy, but for a 2.5 hour long film, we have 3 or 4 action set pieces for the entire course of the film.
Something like that, yeah. Because I've heard casual laymen say that their biggest problem with that movie is spending 45 minutes on playing cards, and I'm like, I don't think you really understand how tense those things are. It's like, I just last night I just rewatched Dune Part 2 with a few friends, and that movie doesn't have a lot of dialogue and certainly doesn't have a lot of action scenes, and yet it holds your interest for a good 2.5 hours. That's pretty impressive. So no, I'm absolutely with you on that. And of course, a great example recently in video games is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which Indy is not it's a very action heavy franchise. I would say arguably more so than Bond, but the video game doesn't have you consistently go through action. It has variety in there. Sometimes you sit and talk to various people. Sometimes you're doing some stealth action. And I think that's kind of more the template I would like to see Bond do, because it's action, it's sex, it's style. That's Bond. And I want to see those things represented in good Bond games. Not that I dislike the first-person shooter action games, but I'm really looking forward to some variety here.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing, is that I don't recall the YouTube creator who made it, but it was a video titled "The Game Hidden Within Call of Duty," and it was going into some of the Call of Duty games that had levels that were abnormally different, where they weren't combat heavy. Like, I know you haven't played Black Ops 6, but you played Cold War, and Cold War has that level where you're in the Kremlin. I want to see more stuff like that out of Bond, where it's missions where violence is an option, but it's going to be more other options to actually complete tasks and whatnot.
And I remember specifically thinking when I was playing Cold War Black Ops, during that infiltration mission, there's a mission like it in World War II, I think it is, where there's like a very infiltration heavy sort of a thing. I'm like, this is more what I want to see from Bond. And from what I've seen of more of the recent Hitman stuff, it seems like they kind of go in that direction, allowing you to decide if you want to blow your cover, if you want to poison somebody's drink, things like that. I'm like, that's more my speed.
Well, Hitman's a game all about the freedom of letting you decide how you want to, take care of tasks. And there's a great meme video from like 10 years ago when the Hitman reboot came out, and there was a level that was like a vineyard, and they had the wine squisher, like to squish the grapes to make the wine. And the guy spent like 9 hours taking every NPC and putting them in there. I want to see stuff like that out of a Bond game, where it's not just, okay, take cover, shoot the guy. It's stuff like we have 60 years of gadgets that we could have in the game, and new gadgets and this and that.
Which I got to say, I rejoice to see a laser watch in there. It's tried and tested, but I want my gadgets.
I'm wearing my laser watch today. I've got my laser watch in case I have to cut through an armored train's floor. But so First Light, again, fingers crossed that it comes out good. I trust IO to be the right dev for it. But again, years since Cyberpunk came out, I have not been hyped for a game at launch unless it was from a game dev that I know wouldn't rush something out. And I doubt IO is going to rush anything out, but I've gotten burned so many times in the last 5 years by games that launched poorly that I'm like, I'll wait until it comes out.
Yeah, like obviously Cyberpunk's a big example, but like No Man's Sky, 9 years ago did the same thing.
Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yep, Mass Effect Andromeda had a similar problem. Star Wars Battlefront 2 had sort of a mixed reception that way. It didn't necessarily launch broken; it just launched with issues nobody wanted to see happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I've never pre-ordered games. I think I've only done that like 2, maybe 3 times, and that's over like 15, 20 years worth of gaming.
Sure.
And the only times I do that is when I know I'm going to buy it. It is a sequel to a game I really love, and that's about as far as I go with it. Because like I think I pre-ordered Arkham City back in the day.
I mean, that's a good game to have pre-ordered.
Yeah, that one turned out to be great. I pre-ordered Jedi Survivor because I was a big fan of Fallen Order, and the pre-order they had Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff with it, and that's a sucker for me. If you know anything about my stuff in Star Wars, you know I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi all the way. But that was about it. Even the Zelda stuff, which Nintendo's consistently excellent in Zelda, even that I don't pre-order. So I doubt I'm going to pre-order for this unless they put something like really juicy. And it's got to be like, I imagine it's just going to be like, get an outfit from a particular actor. It's got to be the right outfit from the right actor for me to go, okay, I might want that.
Well, there's no official hard release date. We won't get any sort of DLC stuff until probably 3 or 4 months ahead of time.
Oh, sure.
I would like it that there's no benefit to pre-ordering besides you've pre-ordered the game.
Yeah.
But, that's not how things work anymore, right?
No, because they want to incentivize you to make their money before.
Oh yes. And as Bond fans, we're quick to do that.
Oh my gosh.
Matt, I have it downloaded, but I haven't played the new Doom game yet. I've heard that it's not as good as Eternal, but Eternal is such a high bar that it's kind of like, how do you do better than that? But I have it downloaded. I just haven't played it. I forced myself to finish Stalker 2 this weekend, which that game was a slog.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with Doom. The closest thing I had was Dark Forces. So I didn't play the original Doom until about 2 years ago. So I haven't kept up with any of this new stuff. So that's out of my wheelhouse. I'm sure I could
enjoy it.
I'm sure I could.
You'd enjoy it. I think you would. You're a Gears of War fan. It sounds weird because the gameplay is so drastically different, but the new Doom games have a very similar aesthetic to Gears of War. And no, Matt, if you haven't played Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, please go play those. Those are high benchmark first-person shooters of the last 15 years. Doom Eternal might be the best game in the last 5 years. Yeah, and then the OG Doom games. I was not old enough for Doom to be what I was playing when I was a youngster. I was playing GoldenEye.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but
GoldenEye Time Splitters.
Yeah, my cousins grew up with Dark Forces and with Half-Life, and so some of those PC-centric things. That's the closest I got to Doom until a couple of years ago when I was doing an Xbox Live Games Pass trial or something like that, and I decided, why not? This is, a very influential game. I ought to expand my horizons a bit.
Well, and that's the thing when it comes to games. It's much like cinema or written works that Doom is an important stepping stone. I think it's still enjoyable to go back and play it. But if your first time playing Doom is 2023, it's going to be like a kick in the head because it's so rudimentary.
Thankfully, I do have nostalgia for those kinds of games. And so it wasn't too hard to get into Doom, but I understand that like somebody without my background would have a tougher time with it.
Yeah. I was thankful that, again, I was probably too young to be playing Doom, but I think I played it for the first time maybe 2004, 2005. Because the joke is, can it run Doom? Like, can your calculator play Doom? And I've enjoyed it for how rudimentary it is, because I think with the gameplay being fairly basic, it means it's held up better than some of the later shooters. Although I was a big Duke 3D fan. I played a lot of Duke Nukem 3D.
Yeah.
Doom meets Blade Runner. I need to look up Assassin 2015.
Yeah, anytime somebody says a game about Assassin, I'm obviously think of that other franchise, which I have done a video on. So I can't say that's one that I'm familiar with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at it. It kind of looks a little like giant mechs. Oh, my buddy Johan's in here. Good to see you, Johan. Um, yeah, no, it's with the gaming landscape is interesting, and Bond games did set a precedent. Like GoldenEye was for me when it comes to shooters. We have Wolfenstein 3D, Duke
Mhm.
or Doom, Duke 3D, Quake 2, Half Life, GoldenEye, and then a Halo, and then I guess Call of Duty, and then everything since Call of Duty. Where I would
Yeah,
say
but
GoldenEye and Halo were like the two big ones for console shooters.
oh, absolutely. GoldenEye setting the standard for what you can do and proving that it can be done very well on consoles. But I think of Halo more as the actual predecessor towards the modern shooters. You can still play the
Oh,
original Halo
absolutely.
today, and it holds up much better than most of the other first person shooters. It's still doing tricks that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of others haven't been doing. And I'm not the biggest fan of the original Halo, but like it does not show its age in the same way that a
Oh
lot of
no,
others do.
I
And I say
you're
this
obvi-
with all the love in the world, but even the EA Bond games do show their age.
Mhm.
Agent Under Fire, I adore that game. It can be a little clunky to go back to. Nightfire probably has held up the best of those. But
Yeah.
Everything or Nothing and From Rush with Love, there's definitely some jankiness there. Uh, Obviously, the Daniel Craig Bond games are of a different breed overall because Quantum of Solace is a Call of Duty game with the third person
Mhm.
cover. GoldenEye Reloaded is very much Call of Duty mechanics in a more stealthy, with a more stealthy context. Bloodstone being the most original of those. And
Yes.
I'm hoping that First Light actually takes some cues from Bloodstones about how to do a Bond
Mhm.
related thing. Don't take from that story. I think that story is actually
Oh,
really,
it's
really cruddy.
yeah. Which
But
I totally forgot about it. Bloodstone has a View to a Kill callback
it,
in the Istanbul level,
it absolutely
which
does.
is
Hard hat.
of all of the films, do we have to? Come
Well,
on.
I mean, Everything or Nothing. Willem Dafoe is tied into Max
I know,
Zorin's.
but I like that more than just a little Easter egg because I have
Sure.
my signed Willem Dafoe behind me, my Everything or Nothing Willem Dafoe signature thing. No,
Yeah.
the Bond games were so important. I will say Halo Combat Evolved is my favorite Halo campaign, even though it's
hmm
rudimentary. This is one of those things where my bias shows through. To me, that game can do no wrong. It set the standard for so many shooters, and I think it holds up better than basically every other first-person shooter from 2001. So, Johan, you
Yeah.
got to watch some Craig films. You'd love those.
Oh boy. Yeah. No. Absolutely. There is a clear one to start with, and I would recommend for the lesser Craig films, go watch those with a buddy,
Yeah.
so that even if you just absolutely hate them, you still get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and Matt
Um,
put there that he's got the Duran Duran title track for View to a Kill. Yeah, I'm a big Duran Duran fan, and I was a big Duran Duran fan before I got back into my Bond resurgence in like 2015, 2016. So I was like, oh, I forgot that they did a song for my least favorite film in the franchise.
yeah,
But
it's
hey, I love the band.
it's been kind of funny because like my family has a fairly eclectic music taste going about it. So when I put on a Bond song from a particular singer, they might go, "Oh, I didn't know she did a Bond song." And I'm like, "Yeah, she did," because my wife very much had that because she had never seen anything of Bond before we
Hmm.
started dating, and so I forget exactly when it was, but pretty early on, I had Thunderball playing with Tom Jones, and her mom's a big Tom Jones fan. So
Huh.
she was like, "Oh, wow, Tom Jones did one of these." I'm like, "Yeah." So we've had some fun with that. And she listens to YouTube Premium while she works, and sometimes she'll put on like a 70s or 80s music playlist and just have it go through. She's a big ABBA fan, so that's more what she's going for. But every once in a while, when I pass the office here, I hear Sheena Easton or Rita Coolidge playing, and I'm like, okay, that's cool.
The weirdest is when you're in the grocery store. Like I was
Oh
in the
my
grocery
gosh.
store and I heard writings on the wall. I'm like, why is this playing in Kroger at 2:30 on a Thursday or whatever?
Actually, I've never said this before, but I'm pretty sure the first time I ever heard Skyfall was in a grocery store.
Really? Really
Yeah.
interesting.
So I was living. So a little bit of context: from 2012 to 2014, I was living in Brazil, doing doing some things and living a life that kind of pretty much divorced me from all media for that time. So so Skyfall's the only Craig Bond film I hadn't seen in theaters. But like, I think a friend showed me the trailer for Skyfall, but like I didn't listen to the song or anything like that because I really couldn't. And I was doing a grocery store with my buddy that I was living with, and there's the song that came on. I'm like, this sounds very Bondian, and my friend who was exposed to more of that stuff, he's like, oh yeah, this is the new Bond film. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So that's the first time I can recall hearing Skyfall.
Yeah, I will say it's interesting to see Bond songs come up out in the wild. I have heard some strange ones. Like, where was I? Kaylee and I were somewhere, and "Die Another Day" by Madonna came on, and I'm like, I get that I'm like one of like 8 people who likes that song, you know, because it's weird. The funny thing is that the album that came from was such a bomb album, like it tanked so bad that was the only hit on the album was "Die Another Day." But yeah, it's interesting when you just kind of find the music out and about. But you know, that's part of the enjoyment. Is a lot of the songs were popular songs when the films came out. See, yeah, Matt's one of the 8 people who likes the Madonna track.
That's fine.
It's part of her performance in the film.
I've always said that fandoms need more positivity, and some of that starts with standing loud and proud and saying your unpopular opinions. That's perfectly fine. I can't act like I've never started to groove a little bit to Die Another Day, but like I can count on one hand the number of times over the last 10 years like I actively went out and sought it because I'm like, I really want to listen to that again. But that's okay.
Hey, it's gotten a lot of play off the CD you gave me, so
that's fine. Great.
But
all right,
so I guess getting back into it, First Light, we're both excited, but with some hesitation. You know, hopefully they don't do a generic thing. Hopefully they kind of do some of the things we'd like to see.
Yeah, because it's very easy to stick in Majesty Secret Service as a music track and a different Aston Martin and say that covers your bases. There's more to it than that. Naturally, Nick. Oh, thank you. I put a lot of work into them. I'm glad you guys enjoy them. And you know, just yesterday I was I finished writing the script for the next one, which is going to be a Bond ranking. And I want to get that out before I go out on vacation for a little bit. So hopefully that goes. So that will be exciting. And that one it won't be a full comprehensive one. And I think you'll understand once we actually get to the video. But it will represent every film, which I like doing those a lot more than top 10 or top 15s. Like, as much as I enjoy doing the gadgets one, it kind of bummed me out that like there was only a few films I could really point to as having great gadgets. I like to do ones where every film gets a mention at some point. That's how I like to do the rankings. But just sometimes because of the topic, I can't without making the video 2 hours long. And I mean, it takes a week or two to put together 30-minute videos for me. Can you imagine an hour and a half, 2 hour long video? I mean, like the retrospectives I've done for like Superman and Bourne, those took the longest, and those were about 3 weeks where I just lived and breathed Christopher Reeve Superman or Jason Bourne. And that could be a little taxing at times for some of the videos.
And I think I mentioned this to you when we first started talking, is like the editing time. Disregard all of the other stuff you have to do, the research, the filming, the figuring out what you're going to have in there. Just the raw editing time is so much time that a lot of people
the voice recording only takes me about just under 2 hours for any one of the videos. But the editing, I could be at that for 5 to 10 times longer, just depending on what it is. It just takes forever. Yeah. Johan, we're very curious as to who the new Bond will be. I don't think it'll be a she or anything like that. I think they are going to try to keep it a fair in-betweener, just kind of a let's not antagonize the fan base yet before we bring them on. But putting that aside, so the guy in First Light, I think that's been identified across the internet as Patrick Gibson, who's an actor I've seen a couple of times, but I didn't necessarily know him off the top of my head. But the name actually threw me off because that was the name of an elementary school bully I had.
Oh.
And so that didn't put me in a great mood. But, you know, I'm sure Gibson's a wonderful guy, and I'm sure he'll do a great job.
And looking at this, apparently he's currently the young Dexter Morgan from the Dexter reboot show.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I guess he's probably a hot actor right now. It's just he's done a bunch of HBO shows that I personally haven't seen. I think you would be more fun. Who in the Bond community would make for a good Bond actor? Who are we nominating?
Yeah, that'd be a tough one. Because
David Zaritsky. I'm nominating David. Okay.
Oh gosh, I'm not sure if I can handle an American Bond after Card Sense Jimmy Bond, Barry Nelson. It is kind of funny because like there are British Bond creators, most prominent one being Calvin, which he's actually in the right age to do it. But I doubt he would I doubt even he would really want to do it. Oh no. Then of course there's our friend Jeroen from Dutch Bond
I think he'd be great. Hey, he's a handsome guy. He's a handsome guy.
He's a great guy. I just don't know if people are ready for a Dutch Bond.
Hey, we do a remake of Diamonds Are Forever. We have the entire film, be Dutch.
Right? Who knows? Agent Meister, thank you for the contribution. I hate to say I don't still play the French horn. I still have it at my parents' house, but for a number of years, that was my high school instrument that I played. And I was decent enough at it that like I got to tour Europe at a national band thing, which was an audition only thing. And I didn't even have to audition actually to get into that, but that's a whole nother story. So I wish I still played the French horn. I know enough to be able to walk somebody else through it, but if I were to pick it up again, I'd have to really work because my chops would start hurting pretty quick.
I can operate an electric triangle. That's the best you're getting out of me.
Yeah, no, thankfully, if I have to create music for my freelance work, I have my keyboard. So I know, so I can play all the instruments off of that. And I spent enough time playing in bands, listening to orchestras and things like that. I've got a good sense for what sounds right in terms of the arrangement. So wish I still played the French horn sometimes, but at the same time, I don't think my wife would very much appreciate hearing just the French horn.
I don't know. She'd be a good sport with it.
Maybe, especially like if I was getting something out of it, just fun or money wise, she'd probably be okay with it. Okay, so we're about 40 minutes in, and we have just covered First Light. We can talk about two other things that I wanted to get to, at least. So there was a stealth drop for Hitman with Lashif, Mads Mikkelsen. You can go kill him as Agent 47. And since I don't have that game, I had to go online to watch a video walkthrough of the thing. It was about 30 minutes long or something like that. But like, thankfully, it was more than just the novelty of having Mads Mikkelsen in there. There were definitely some Bond references. I mean, the final hand of that is the final hand from the film. If I was playing the Hitman games, that's what I would have been doing this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'll tell you. So I'm not super up to date on the Hitman games, but they have done a lot of tied-in things to other franchises or real-life stuff like F1 and whatnot. They've done a lot of really tasteful, well-done tie-ins to other things. And the fact that they got Mads Mikkelsen to come back for the game, Mads has already been doing some gaming lately. Like he's in Death Stranding, and he's a fully fledged mocap, face capped voice actor, and did all of that. And I can appreciate Mads. I think Mads as an actor is one of those. I want to see some of his stuff he did before he got really popular. But yeah, the Hitman level, it looked fantastic. I might give it a try. I don't actually own Hitman 3, but that expansion's totally free. And the way that I hate that they do the games as a live service, but the benefit of it being a game as a live service is that level is totally free. You can just download Hitman and play it right now if you want to.
Yeah, so if anybody's watching that didn't know that, well, Hitman 3 now has a Bond tie-in thing. Absolutely give it a go. And there's definitely some Bond nods there. They can't go too in depth because obviously this is still Agent 47's world, but they do what they can, and it's quite nice.
It was nice to see the white dinner coat show up, since so many Bond fans want to see more Bond in a white dinner coat, because we only had 3 or 4 films.
Yeah, because obviously there's Goldfinger where he wears it, Diamonds he wears it, Octopussy he wears it, and then I think the last time we had it was Craig for Spectre.
Yeah.
On
the train car.
Yeah, I don't think he does too much of the white coat anywhere else. Yeah, I'm just kind of going through my mind. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Well, and that's why people like it so much, because it's so different. I'm sure that there's probably cut scenes that ended up on the cutting room floor that maybe we'd have Timothy Dalton in a white tux in Ismith City.
Sure.
with his hairline halfway back his head.
Oh, the poor widow's peak. That hair set. Oh my gosh.
But so the Hitman level, I'm happy to see it. It's funny. So this is some behind the scenes for the viewers. I saw it at 6:15 this morning, and I got on YouTube. I sent it right to Stephen, and he said, "I'm already watching this exact video."
Because I usually get up very early in the morning, just taking my dog out and letting her run around and do things. So I was watching that just as Paul sent me that. So that was a bit serendipitous. All right.
Absolutely.
I think the only other 2-bit of Bond news recently, we have the 4K collection of the Sean Connery films that's out. I may or may not pick that up just because, Connery films in 4K. There is a little bit of a caveat with that. They're presented in 4K, but obviously the films were not shot in 4K. I think the highest they go is about 2K resolution. So they're not going to be able to inject anything that wasn't already there.
Yeah.
But from the stills that I've seen from the clips, it's the cleanest it's ever looked. And I already thought the Blu-ray looked okay from back in the day, but this is just another level of just really, really solid stuff. And it sounds like it's a new transfer.
That's good.
It sounds like they're new transfers versus the Lowry restoration ones from mid-2000s.
The only issue I have is the rear screen projection is going to look very, very bad in these new
there's no way around that. Dr. No,
I know,
yeah.
Well, the rear screen projection, they were doing that pretty late into the franchise, and it looks pretty bad up to.
View to a Kill. You have some really bad ones in View to a Kill. I also noticed on my recent watch through of Spy Who Loved Me that there was a couple bits in the pre-credits that really did jar with me. But starting from Living Daylights onward, they did get better with it because they obviously still have it.
I think of as much as I love Spy Who Loved Me, the part where it's Roger on the ski slopes at the beginning and it's
it's so very. But there's also the bit where he turns around and does the awesome gunshot. And then there's a quick shot where he turns, I think, to his left to see some of the other skiers go down. Yes. And if you actually look at the rear screen there, it's terrible.
Well, he does a little head bob, and you can really tell that it's just, we have a treadmill behind him. Some stuff there.
It's almost like Chad here. It's almost like he knows Marvin Hamlish is playing behind him, and it's just, oh yeah. This is my jam.
Disco Bond is Disco Bond. Sure. Johan put in chat here, who'd win, Bond or Agent 47? My money is probably on Agent 47 also.
Yeah, usually I would ask the follow-up of which version of Bond are we talking about, but from what I know of Agent 47, he wins that one.
Hey, Agent 47 killed his own boss, who he loved. You know,
Yeah.
he's. I don't think Bond would shoot M. You know, at least not for now. Who knows? Let's give it some. Let's give it some time.
Well, maybe if he was brainwashed by the Russians, he might.
True. It would not be a farewell to arms. Would you like to see Coleman Domingo? Let me look that up.
Yeah, I don't know that I know that guy. Let me see if I know him.
This guy, okay, so I'm sure I've seen something that this gentleman's been in. He has the look of a Bond villain already. Like,
I didn't watch the Walking Dead stuff. So, and he's in Euphoria. Okay, so that's on my watch list anyway. Okay, I've seen Lincoln, but there were a lot of people in Lincoln. I didn't remember that Adam Driver was in that. Yeah. I think that'd be a fine choice. It's been a long time since we've had a proper black Bond villain. Why not?
Well, and I think that we now live in an era where people have a lot of rose-tinted glasses about actors who were good in the past. I think that there are so many good actors with how prevalent TV has gotten and how good TV is as a medium these days. Why not? Hey, if they're a good actor, throw them in the film. Just please write something for them to do. Like Rami Malek in No Time to Die is the worst part of that, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's such a wasted role there. But I like all the henchmen more than Rami Malek in that film.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. My wife would really like to see Theo James as Bond, and I can't say that's a bad choice.
To be truthfully, if people say here's an actor, I don't think there's an actor that you or I would be like, yeah, they're a bad fit for Bond. Like, as long as they're a good actor,
I mean, within reason, because I still want him to be British.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I remember maybe it was because Calvin Dyson did those videos where he ran through the most recent candidates. I think one of them he had Dev Patel as one of the possible contenders. I think that would be the wrong choice. I love Dev Patel. I've seen him in a bunch of things, not for Bond.
Sure.
But most of the other ones, I think Henry Cavill is a little too obvious at this point. And I would feel bad because the running joke with my wife is that Henry Cavill can't get a job that lasts more than 3 years. Because he just keeps getting into things and then either gets dropped or they move on to a new actor. Yeah. So yeah, Jonah Hill. I don't want Jonah Hill anywhere near playing the lead role for Bond.
I wouldn't want to see it either, but also he's a good actor, and he does the Christian Bale things these days where he cycles weight and does the method acting stuff.
Oh sure, but like part of me, just because of his past reputation, 21 Jump Street and what have you. Sure. Part of me would love if we were actually daring enough to go back into silly Roger Moore territory. I would love to see Jonah Hill play an ally, just to let us have some fun.
Why not have Jonah Hill come back as a Jack Wade style goofball ally who helps out? Or
sure,
why not?
Yeah, but like I'm thinking. Obviously, I'm thinking more overt comedic, like Clifton James as Sheriff Pepper, or Rowan Atkinson as I forget that character name, Nigel. Nigel from Never Say Never Again.
That's a film I don't want to think about, though. It's for me, it's never watch it ever again. So.
So what island do I want in the next Bond? Funny enough, I am actually working on a project right now that has something to do with James Bond. I'm not ready to reveal it quite yet. But actually the two of the locations you mentioned are actually part of this pitch. The Santa Catalina is an island that we were thinking of sending Bond to in that, and I actually have the climax of that thing set in the second and third act set entirely in Japan, but not Tokyo. It's in Sapporo, Japan, because it's been a long time since we actually have done Japan proper. I don't count No Time to Die because that's in an island in disputed waters between the two, so that doesn't count to me as actually going back to Japan. I'd like us to go back there.
Agreed. Plus, Sapporo already has a Bond tie-in because Bond does wine tastings of Sapporo beer while in Sapporo in one of the novels, in one of the continuation novels. So,
yeah.
Why not?
Sure. Read the Bond comic from Dynamite. I haven't, but that is absolutely on my to-read list. I've heard some very good things, and I've read a couple of plot descriptions, and some of them sound really interesting. Where they go with that, so that is absolutely something I'd like to read. And if I manage to actually get a physical copy of it here, I can do scans of it, and boom, I already have a new review series that I could do for the channel. That'd be cool.
Yeah, no, I think that all of the Bond non-film content has been very entertaining to see over the last couple of years here. Because we've had, people don't pay attention to it, but there's been a lot of it that's come out since No Time to Die.
I mean, I would love to talk about the new Raymond Benson Felix Leiter book, but I can't because I haven't got my hands on it yet.
Because they're doing that piecemeal like episodes, right?
I think so. I'm not entirely sure about that. But I absolutely agree. It's just the extra film stuff so far I've been pretty happy with. I mean, La La Land Records doing all of their Bond soundtracks. I've been very happy with that. Now they're going to start doing them in vinyl. Really excited about that. At least for the people that do vinyl.
I have my vinyl No Time to Die back here, which I was where I found this? It was at a Walmart of all places. I found a vinyl No Time to Die at Walmart.
Okay, we do have a question about the cars in the next film.
They'll do it right. They'll do it right. They always do it right.
Yeah, they're gonna go back and do the Aston Martin DB5 because they always do these days. That's just so iconic. But I was really happy with No Time to Die deciding to highlight different cars with the Aston. In fact, I wouldn't mind seeing another car company get some sort of prominence with the next one. You know how like Roger is associated with the Lotus, despite the fact that he's only driven 2 of those.
And one of them exploded immediately.
Yeah, and then Brosnan's associated with BMW. So, why not? No, Johan, Jaguar, only villains. Only villains should do those.
As Die Another Day showed us.
Yep. But also, I'm trying to recall, wasn't Mr. Hinks and Spectres also a Jaguar?
Yes, it was one of the Jaguar specialty cars, which Jaguar is Indian owned now, and it's strange. For whatever they do for the cars, I'm not too worried about it. I would say yes, please don't do another callback film, because in the last 25 years, 3 of the 6 films have been massive callback films. Yeah. I don't want to have more callback films.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not sure. Because I
don't know.
As we as fans actually do want some different things than general audiences. General audiences don't seem to mind a whole lot of callback things, but that has been the in thing to do for the last 15 years, and we're kind of over it at this point. It's particularly with Bond. Bond has never really been a reference-heavy franchise in the same way that some of the others have. So it would be nice to go back to do something that maybe has 1 or 2 small references, but for the most part, I want it to be its own thing.
Agreed. Especially, you say it's not reference heavy, but there's quite a few films that are reference heavy.
Oh, there absolutely are. But I mean, like,
Majesty's Die Another Day, and
I'm thinking obviously of like Marvel and Star Wars being the big ones that are. And Marvel, it's a little bit understandable because of how they do their films. But with Star Wars, there's so many member berries throughout the whole thing. And that's a big problem I have with like Rogue One. I know some people really love it. Some of those member berries really get under my skin.
So I just like Rogue One on principle because they discounted my man Kyle Katarn. Justice for Kyle Katarn.
Yeah, we were talking about Dark Forces earlier, and I'm like, dang it, man.
Not Kyle.
That's okay.
But
Okay.
the vehicles will be fine. The vehicles will be fine.
I'm not too worried.
As long as
I
it's a cool action sequence featuring a car. No Time to Die, for me, has the best vehicular action stuff that they've done since Tomorrow Never Dies, as far as I'm concerned. Because Die Another Day is not bad, but it's a little superhero movie-like.
I'm about 50-50 between Die Another Day and No Time to Die, but they're both really good. But yeah, we haven't had too many great car action things really in the Craig era of like actual chases, because you and I just don't like that chase inspector.
Oh, it's 8 miles an hour. I feel like we have 2 geriatric drivers behind the wheels. It's like being in traffic on the I-15. It's not very fun.
And the thing is that Bond has done car chases without gadgets better in the past. For Your Eyes Only. Yes. However you feel about that film, I adore that car chase. It's so much fun.
It's one of the most entertaining parts of that film.
It is really, really fun.
I caught a fly.
Act 3 set piece in a huge broccoli field. Bond's been through a poppy field.
We have Bond eating his veggies. He's eating his veggies. And he goes, "This is Barbara."
I think that would be pushing it too far. Yeah, can you imagine in Bond 26? Like they even include a line in there is like, "You must eat your veggies, eat your broccoli."
It's in a locker, but it's inset into a wall, so it's a cubby, and there's broccoli in the cubby.
Oh my gosh!
I don't know where we're gonna find a Harry Saltzman. Where are we gonna find one of those?
I don't know. Maybe it just puts too much salt on the broccoli. Who knows?
I saw that Johan put here, are we going to have Omega watches again or Rolexes? It's going to be Omega. The Bond franchise got bought out by Omega with GoldenEye, and you're going to be seeing Omega watches into perpetuity.
Yeah.
Johan, you mentioned Swatch. Swatches do show up in the most recent Craig film. There are swatches that show up in the film.
Yeah, I'm just going to let the guy that actually reviews watches talk about that.
Well, and I'll pull this out because Johan is the guy that if I'm doing a shooting video, it'll be point of view shooting. He'll go, "Hey man, your watch is looking great." So I'm wearing my classic Brosnan Seamaster here. Broccoli cubby and the salt shaker holding man. Okay, that's the comment there. Say, does anyone like the car chase at the start of Quantum? I like the car chase. I dislike the editing.
Yeah, it mars that chase, but yeah, I do like that car chase. And that's another example of you can do a gadgetless car sequence and still make it cool.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that car chase is so impressive, but since they chopped up the way they did in editing, I think the entire Sienna part of that film, it's so impressive, but then the editing is so rough. Right, it's so rough. If the editing was a little bit less, I don't know, like traumatic brain injury inducing, I think that would be one of people's favorite parts of the Bond franchise for action. But it's so rough. I like Quantum a lot. It's not like top 10 or something like that for me, but I like it more than like half of the other films in the franchise. The editing is the thing that really holds it back for me. Yeah,
I know it was a deliberate choice, but just because it was a deliberate choice in a vision doesn't mean you have to necessarily gel with it. So that's why I tend to not think about Quantum as having like a great car chase, because it absolutely does. But when you can have a great idea, if you don't execute it well enough, or like if I can actually see it, that's a problem.
Well, does this roll into our last topic that you and I kind of discussed about execution?
Yeah, a little bit. Let's see if there's any other. Sorry, my eyes are watering because
you're fine.
I was doing water sports earlier, and so I had, of course, sunscreen, which is now starting to melt down and get into my eyes.
I can see chat here. One of the questions we missed.
Yeah.
Infuse said, "I'm hoping that David Arnold comes back on board." I doubt that he will, but I would love to see that because I think David Arnold was probably our favorite composer in the series. John Barry's great, don't get me wrong, but the Arnold stuff stuck to us very, very well.
I think I might go with John Barry as my absolute favorite, but David Arnold is the runner-up. And yeah, I would have absolutely no hesitation about signing him back on. That'd be great.
Matt put thoughts on the PPK continuing in Bond. The PPK is to Bond as martinis are. As much as I would love to see something new and different, we're going to continue to have the PPK. Walther's not making a gun that's fit for Bond at this time.
Most likely.
So just the PPK.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the promo image of First Light also has him with the PPK.
I have it opened up here. Let me take a look.
Yeah.
It sure looks like it.
But yeah, no, I would, Johan, I am with you that just, Roger and Sean both in 1983 tried out the Walther P5. And that was a nice change. It still felt close enough to the idea of the PPK to keep that going. But I'm also very fond of the P99 that they did for Brosnan. I like the look of it. And I don't really want them to completely drop the PPK, but I don't mind every so often Bond trying out a new gun for an adventure or two.
Well, and the P5 is very iconic, as Matt here in chat actually owns one. Looking at the production still that they have, it looks like a PPK, but it also looks like it's... So this is kind of some behind-the-scenes stuff for gaming. A lot of companies can't do actual guns anymore. They have to do not guns because there was a law with California. So around 2019, 2020 is when you stopped seeing like actual guns in games. Unless they were historical things like a World War II thing or there was some weird stuff. So I doubt you're going to be seeing the P99 in the game, but it's the P99 in the game.
Yeah. And I mean, guns in Bond games have always been a bit of a touchy subject to begin with. I mean, even starting before GoldenEye, they had to change some things. And then, of course, GoldenEye comes and, not being a gun nut growing up, I thought those were all real guns. The PP7 or the RCP-90, all of that.
It's funny you mentioned that because one of the articles that my editor's written, and I know Matt's seen it, is that when Dan did his CZ61 Scorpion review, CZ made it, but the VZ61 Scorpion, that is the Klob from GoldenEye. Yeah. So he had a Klob joke in the title of the review. So, yeah. Because Dan still plays GoldenEye on an actual Nintendo 64 because he's a sadist.
I mean, once I had that thing for the Xbox, I couldn't go back. I love my controller for that too much. Okay, Acres of Movies has been dropping a couple of questions.
Sure.
Broken Claw. Yes, I have read that book. What about it? It is not one of my favorites. And John Gardner, I mean, I think that was actually his favorite of his own books that he wrote. It's not my favorite of his, but then again, I'm not the biggest John Gardner fan. I do have a lot of fondness for some of the bizarreness of For Special Services and Never Send Flowers. Those are some really odd ones. Bradley Cooper, next Bond villain.
I don't think that would work. I think Bradley Cooper he's a great actor, but I don't see how he would be a villain in that would be, unless we had like a return to like the 1970s goofy villains.
Yeah, no, I've said this before. I think I said it when I talked about what do I want in Bond 26, which dated pretty badly, given that Amazon just came around the corner with that. The villain is the casting choice I think that has the most freedom in Bond films. For the most part, as long as you get a pretty decent actor, you can do just about anything with a villain and you can make it work. So I'm not going to rule out Brad Cooper entirely. It's just going to be a bit of an issue because I know Brad Cooper from a bunch of things. I kind of like it when the Bond villains are ones that like you maybe have seen in a couple of other films, but they're not like the biggest names. They're just like good character actors. I tend to like that. But then again, Sean Bean's everywhere. Jonathan Pryce is everywhere,
I still need to have you watch Ronin. Now that you mentioned Jonathan Pryce, for everyone in chat who's watched Ronin, please tell Steven to watch Ronin. Okay.
Yeah.
Continue on.
And yes, Topol is one of my favorite Bond allies.
Same here.
Columbo. I enjoyed the idea of that in in the short story anyway. I think he was in Risico or Risico, however you say that. But yeah, Columbo's in that. And I always liked the idea of the character. So it was nice when I got to the film that he was preserved there. And I mean, Fiddler on the Roof, I'm not a big musical fan, but Fiddler on the Roof is my very favorite musical. And I adore the film as well. So of course I have an affinity for Topol.
Yeah, that's one of the highlights of For Your Eyes Only for me. There's a lot of that film that I like. Obviously, you like it more than I do. But Topol, I think, is for me, I think Topol might be my favorite part of that film.
And fair enough. I mean, he's reminiscent enough of the good, warm-hearted friendliness of Karen Bay, but he's not the same guy, importantly, which I really like.
Absolutely. Goodness. You know, it's funny talking about your partners and allies video is great because a lot of people don't think about it. You know, I think some people might have the idea of Bond as the sole guy, but it's like, oh no, nearly every film has someone helping Bond. As do the books. The books are never Bond by himself. It's always some sort of assistance from somebody else.
Yeah, no, because like Casino Royale, of course, you have Mathis and Felix Leiter in there. Live and Let Die. You have Quarrel and Felix Leiter in there. Moonraker. I mean, Moonraker, he's kind of ally-less if you don't think of Galibrand as not as... It's a little tough when you talk about the category. Because some people are very specific. The person only counts in one of the categories, and then there are others that are like, no, they count in multiple. Because if I was doing a very flexible idea of Bond allies for my eventual video on that, then pretty much every major Bond woman would have to be on that list. And I don't know that I want to do that. And especially because the biggest video I've got coming up is doing pretty much every other Bond girl in existence. Just because I am so sick. I just a little bit of a personal thing here. So I do read a lot of the comments, if not every comment that comes in on any of my videos. But with the Bond girls ranking being one of my most popular videos I've done, I am so sick of hearing from people, oh, but Plenty O'Toole should be on there. Or, hey, Chew Me should be on there or something like that. I'm like, no, I was very clear in the beginning. One per film.
Yeah.
And it had to be the main good girl there. And so the Bond Girls Part 2 is... I'm going to have some fun doing it just because there's a bunch of characters on there that never get talked about. But that video is born pretty much out of frustration of just, I am so sick of hearing this person should count. This person should count. You're absolutely right. I just set myself a criteria so I didn't have 100 candidates. Well, now I'm going to do the 100 candidites video.
Where does Jenny Flex rate in the film? Since I've now watched it.
Because part of it in doing every Bond girl in existence is you have to count a lot of the no-namers.
Yeah.
And like, how in the world are you gonna like decide between like the French agent that's at the beginning of Thunderball versus I don't know, the Bond girl at the beginning of A View to a Kill in the pre-credit sequence in the submarine. I have no idea.
This is, you know, the phrase of like, we're trying not to be apples to oranges. This is the apples to oranges list.
Yeah, that I have no idea how I'm going to do that. I might end up like grouping them together of just saying like, so these are these people that are pretty much the same character. They're just played by different actresses. But yeah, that has been my compromise idea, ranking instead the main male allies to just go ahead with that. Though even with that list, I'm going to have to make some concessions because I don't want to count the MI6 people. I don't want to count Q. I don't want to count M because that would be very unfair. Because the top three right now would be in this order: Q, M, Moneypenny. There you go. And then everybody else comes below that. So I don't want to do that.
That's the thing, is that the Bond franchise is so deep that you could basically make a video about anything tangentially related to the films, and you know, it could be 3 hours long.
And the funny thing is because you have those 27 films to go through, chances are you could make a pretty decent length just talking about every instance of that particular thing. I joked with one viewer that like, because I think he commented on my gun barrels ranking that he's like, I feel like we're going to the bottom of the barrel here of like things to do. I'm like, not at all. I like doing a lot of the lists that I'm doing right now. They may not seem like the obvious first choices, but I'm always way more excited when I can cover a topic that hasn't been extensively covered by everybody else.
Yeah.
I like that. I like doing that. But to me, doing the gun barrels is not the bottom of the barrel in terms of like figuring out things to rank in Bond. To me,
you could be ranking the credit sequences at the end of the film. Like that would be lower.
Yeah, that or who has the best hairstyle in any of the films. It's basically Connery's toupee versus everybody else. I have no idea.
I mean, our boy Timmy has pretty bad hair in License to Kill.
Oh my gosh. And I love that like a lot of the promo images for License to Kill of Timmy on like the VHSs and DVDs, a lot of them try not to use an image of Timothy from that film. They might like take a promo image from because you get that. Because you get that. I'm sorry. I love Widow's Peaks and People, but my goodness,
that is less of a Widow's Peak and more of a Dante's Peak.
Aha! See what you did there. Which, by the way, I really enjoyed yesterday. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing that as a different thing. You know, still Bond adjacent, but I grew up with that film a whole bunch. You know, I grew up in Washington State, so Mount St. Helens was very much on my mind. So knowing that there was a film starring Pierce Brosnan that did Cascade Volcanoes, I was like, I'm sold. Let's do it. And I'm pretty sure I even watched that film before I saw any of the Bond films. So that's part of this extra list. It's like when I did Jaws. I did that because it's one of my favorite films of all time. And I've got a couple of others in the queue that I will do a full review of. Like Casablanca's on the list. And I am so intimidated about talking about that. But Good Will Hunting's also on the list, and I'm so intimidated to talk about that film, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's enjoyable to go and cover your favorite films, right? I know Casablanca is number one for you. Jaws is number one for me, so when I saw that pop up, I'm like, oh yeah, especially Jaws turns 50 in 2 weeks. So,
it does.
Hey Matt, take care. Thanks for popping in, brother.
Yeah.
That's the thing is that when it comes to what we like as film, Bond is a big part of it, but how many Bond films will we say are our favorite movies of all time, right? And for some people, that might be like every Bond film could be their favorite movie. I know for you and I, Casino Royale is probably like in our top 10 favorite films of all time. But like,
it's the only Bond film that's in my top 10.
Exactly. So that's the thing there is that like Jaws is my number one film of all time. And as much as I love the Bond films that are technically better in this way and that way, Jaws is a film that I think is nearly perfect. Right?
I really can't think of major fundamental flaws with that movie.
Aside from some technical stuff, like continuity stuff, I think as a script, it's fantastic.
Yeah, but
as the acting, it's fantastic.
It's also like it's like nitpicking that stuff from Raiders of the Lost Ark, where that's part of the charm of the piece a little bit. And, at some point, no matter what you do, visual effects, special effects, mechanics, they're always going to date. And that film is 50 years old now. So, like, of course it's going to start looking a little rigidy and fake and whatnot. I don't care. I buy so much into the Menace of the Monster, I don't think about it.
Well, they do the great thing of every good monster film, regardless of how good it looks, don't show the monster until pretty far in. And Jaws doesn't show you the shark until the halfway point.
I mean, King Kong from 1932. That's still a spectacular movie. Yes, it looks fake as crap, but yeah.
I like it more than the Peter Jackson one.
Which the Peter Jackson one's not. That one's not bad. It's just overly long.
It's a slog. He has that where I love Peter Jackson, but his films are always too long.
Yeah.
But I saw here Timothy Chalamet for James Bond. We went Timmy for Jimmy. I don't think Timothy Chalamet. He's a wonderful actor. I don't think that he has the physical build to be James Bond. When I think of literary Bond or the film Bond, Timothy Chalamet is not the image that comes to my mind. He's not haggard enough. He's not beefy enough.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier in the live stream. I just rewatched Dune Part 2 last night with a few friends. And so Timothy Chalamet, of course, was on a screen for about 3 hours for me. For me, part of it, too, I don't think he has the right magnetic kind of charisma to do Bond. There needs to be something inherent about the guy that draws your eyes to him. And like he portrays some of that in Dune because that's the whole point of that story is about false messiahs and the danger that they can be. But like he builds up to that, but I don't think he naturally has that. Yeah, Johan, you put it right. He's not very suave. But then again, I could be proven wrong because Daniel Craig so did not fit the mold of Bond to me. And when Casino Royale came out, I realized I had to sit down and shut up because, man, that man's changed my mind.
I could see Timothy playing Q. I think after after Ben Wishmer, I always get his name wrong. Wishaw. I think that kind of mold of Q, instead of as much as I like the old performances of Q, where he's rigid old man who is quirky between Bond. I think that the newer style of Q fits Bond in the 21st century much better, right? Yeah. Instead of it being the haggard guy saying, "Here are your tools, go do your work." It's, I kind of like the newer Q. I can see Timothy Chalamet playing Q.
Sure.
I think that would be fine.
I think that could be fine. Or like a different ally figure for Bond. I think that would be fine. Okay. List Chief added. Granular Spirit, you came in late enough. We spent a good chunk of the early part of the live stream talking about Lashif being in recent Hitman. And, so when this is done, you can go back and rewind and get our thoughts on that. But we did address that.
And we were happy to see it. It was cool.
Yeah, very much. Oh, Kelsey Grammer. I adore that actor. I have no idea where he would fit into Bond, but if you put him in there, I'm going to sit up for that.
I mean, Kelsey Grammer, I think he could do serious, but the issue I have is that he always seems very tongue-in-cheek. Like he's holding back laughter when he's doing a serious performance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I see that Akers is talking about the beginning of For Your Eyes Only again, of dropping Nofeld into the cooling tower.
Which I do like your term for that, Nofeld. I mean, it's got the most iconic line in the series. How could you not adore it?
I'll buy you a delicatessen in stainless steel.
In stainless steel. I don't know how Bond wasn't tempted for that.
I mean, I would be. Truthfully, I would be. That or the second best Bond line is a sudden stiffness.
Just a slight stiffness coming on.
Just a slight stiffness, yeah. I see we have Gambit's in here. Hello, Gambit. Thank you for joining. Jai Courtney for James Bond. I could not see Jai Courtney. And after Jai Courtney was in that terrible Terminator film, right? Have they done any acting since then? They were hiding.
Oh, no, he has. Jai Courtney's been in things because the year after he did Terminator Genesis, which was with Emilia Clarke, he also did Suicide Squad, where he played Captain Boomerang. Not great. He did not have the best luck in choosing films because he was also in the worst Die Hard movie.
Yeah,
where he plays John McClane's son.
Wasn't it called
A Good Day
to Die Hard? That was the one where they were in Russian. Yeah, that was the one where they were in Russia and it was terrible.
Yeah. Didn't like that.
Yeah. I mean, Jai Courtney's not a bad actor, but he's not been in a lot of good things, which does play a part. But then again, how much good stuff was Daniel Craig in, or Pierce? I mean, Pierce Brosnan, I think of all the Bond actors, he and Roger Moore probably had the most amount of work that they had done prior to taking on the role, right? Even true. Sean Connery, I think of the biggest film he was in prior to Bond came out the same time that Dr. No did, which was The Longest Day, which is, I call it the longest movie because it's really boring.
True. But I mean, I did see Darby O'Gill in The Little People. as a kid growing up. So that's, I think, the earliest Sean film I've seen.
Mhm.
But yeah, Roger had a fine career. Even Timothy Dalton did have a career doing various things. He had a good
Yeah.
career, but he wasn't quite as prolific as Brosnan and Roger were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Jonathan Frakes is
Frakes.
Elliot Carver.
Okay. Since we have brought up Dark Forces at least twice in this review, in this live stream, I will say, as a kid, I always wanted to see Jonathan Frakes play Kyle Katarn.
Well, the issue is that there weren't enough like blue alien ladies with like stuff on their heads for you to romance in those games. That's where Jonathan Frakes would have done really well, is if he had to hit on some alien.
Oh
ladies.
yeah, because because Kyle Katarn is definitely known as a womanizer with Jan Ors over his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Frakes now playing Elliot Carver.
Maybe
I'd rather see him play his own original character if he's going to be in one of these films. I do love Jonathan Frakes.
Oh gosh, I'm what's the oh gosh, who in License to Kill, the evangelist character, I'm played by Wayne Newton. I think Jonathan Frakes would be a good like that, where like a comic relief character who's kind of serious.
I think that'd be fun.
I think that would be fun. It'd be fun. Bless your
That'd be
heart.
a good fun time. Yeah. Okay. Best 90s Bond. Oh boy. Well, obviously, if Pierce hadn't had done it, I would have done anything I could to get Timothy back in. But there were
Richard Burton would not be a good fit. I just want to put that out there. Richard Burton was too drunk and too out of shape to ever play Bond.
Yeah.
He would have been closer to the literary Bond, except the literary Bond knew when to stop drinking. Richard Burton didn't.
Yeah. Debatable. Yeah, but that's true. Brendan Fraser. Again, I'm so not for American Bonds. So that would be a hard no to me. I do like Brendan Fraser. I grew up with him, obviously. So I'm thinking back to the people that were on the list for the 90s. So obviously Sean Bean was on the list. Liam Neeson was on the list. Ralph Fiennes was there. Maybe it's because I'm a Doctor Who fan, but I think Paul McGann could have played a really interesting Bond in the 90s. And, if he had scooped up Bond when Brosnan said no, obviously he probably would not have been Doctor Who. But a Canadian, sure, but it's kind of a tricky call because like Canada is part of the Commonwealth, so technically they count. I don't really have any hard reasons why Ryan Reynolds shouldn't be James Bond, except that for me that would be the worst thing to wake up to.
We could use the excuse that he is signed on with a watch brand that isn't Omega, and that's why he can't be James Bond.
The commercialized Ryan Reynolds. I mean, my gosh, the amount of times I've seen things for his mobile phone.
His gin. Oh, that Mint Mobile, and then his gin.
Mint Mobile. Yeah. There's just a number of things. What is it? Aviation gin that he does?
Yes, which is. I know you don't drink. Aviation's not very good gin, so it's very harsh.
All I can think of. Have you seen the feud videos that he and Hugh Jackman did with each other?
Yes.
Okay, so I think of the image of just Hugh Jackman tipping the bottle over, letting it pour out.
We have an empty bottle of it that we use as a flower vase, which I think is possibly the best use for aviation gin, is to be a vase. Probably.
Could Bond be in Yemen or Libya?
Bond in the Middle East has happened. Yeah, I mean, admittedly, I think this is one of our gripes with the Living Daylights, is that we have the Mujahideen showing up, but I have no problem.
But they couldn't have known at the time. But
it's not. My issue is not that as much as I think it slows down the film and then it amps it back up. And I kind of would have preferred it if we had just, because it happens very suddenly, right, with the Tangier stuff, and I would have liked it to not have that big focus. Like, why can't we just have them wake up at the base, escape, and then the Mujahideen attack at the same time that Bond and Kara are? That's a topic of how that
would be a little
really perfect.
Yeah, that would be a little too coincidental for me, but I get your point there. Then why not Adam Sandler? Oh my gosh.
I'm just imagining. Can you imagine James Bond, doing the mission in basketball shorts?
No, what I'm imagining is a remake of Goldfinger where you have Happy Gilmore playing golf.
Yeah, we have Happy Gilmore, and then we have to have Kevin James show up. Kevin James can be Goldfinger.
Oh my gosh. Granular Spirit. If he had dropped out after Spectre, I love Richard Armitage. I think that would have been a fantastic choice to have him do that. I did mention in my 5 period piece romance films for people that don't like those. I did include North and South on that, the BBC miniseries he did, and Armitage is just fantastic. I think he absolutely would have killed it, either as Bond or as a villain. I think that would have been spectacular.
Hey, he can still be a villain.
He can still be a villain. Nope, because it doesn't matter what age, what ethnicity, what gender you are, or height. You could make it work. So, yes, I am opening the door that if they wanted to put Peter Dinklage in the film, I would be okay with that.
Look, Peter Dinklage is a great actor. Why not?
Yeah. Anywho, yeah, we could just talk about various casts that we would like to do, but there was one exercise that Paul and I thought about doing, which is we're going to take a film that we either like or dislike and tweak it just a little bit, see if we can make it better. And without really rewriting the film, because I don't really want to sit here and just say, well, how can we fix Spectre? Well, for you and I, it's basically a page 1 rewrite in some ways. But like, I want to take a film that we don't like all that much, but we feel like we could probably fix it a little bit. But I'm actually going to go ahead and start with the controversial pick.
Okay.
That everybody's going to crucify us for, because I was thinking about this in the car.
Can I guess?
Sure.
Are you chopping scenes out of Goldfinger? I
am going to tweak Goldfinger.
Okay.
But I'm not going to do the barn scene. I'm not going to do the barn scene because I have said my piece on that several times. I've gotten a lot of hate for it. It's fine. It's what it is. But you actually brought up a good point about this when we were talking about Goldfinger, about why you and I both really like it, but it's not our favorite Bond film. It's not even our favorite Connery film, I don't think.
No, it's not. No.
But you brought up a good point where a lot of it is just Bond just going through things that, like, he's not
kind of witnessing stuff.
Yeah, like he's a passive observer a lot of the time. Some of that makes sense because it's a spy film. So, him tailing Goldfinger is fine. But like, really, when you consider, like, about a good 45 minutes of the film is him in Kentucky, where he really can't do all that much. But even before that, with the stuff in Switzerland, I think he's tailing Goldfinger. He's watching there at the factory, sort of a thing. Connery's Bond actually doesn't do all that much in the film. He just kind of progresses on Sean Connery aura, which fair enough. Yes. But like, I feel like there's probably something we could fix there. Like,
the stuff with Tilly Masterson is just more so because they wanted to kind of tie it back to the beginning. But did you need to? Like, that doesn't come back up at any other point in the film. Right, like after she's killed off.
Because Tilly's a character in the book, and she does play a larger role. She actually gets captured with Bond, goes with him to Kentucky, and actually decides to go off with Pussy Galore's group before she gets killed at the end of that. So, I think there was this kind of arbitrary criteria that Broccoli and Saltzman did, where they felt like they had to have like 3 or 4 women in the film, regardless of how forced in they seem. They wanted to have as many hot girls in there as they wanted. And that's always been a problem to me. I don't mind. Obviously, Bond sex is a big thing of it. And obviously you want beautiful women, but like, if I'm going to have a Bond woman in the film, I want her to mean something. Yes. Even if it's only for a couple of minutes. Like Ana de Armas is a good pick, because that's only 10 minutes of the film, but she does stuff.
Oh, she's
during that whole sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, are we
So
adding or cutting out KFC scenes from Goldfinger? Are we adding in more KFC scenes? We're gonna see that. We're gonna see Felix ordering the chicken.
I'm if I were going to tweak Goldfinger just a little bit to address this idea that Bond doesn't really do that much, I think what I would do is maybe have him sabotage RX Enterprises at some bit. Like have him actually like try to put a wrench in Goldfinger's plan before he learns about Grand Slam. It doesn't have to be a big action scene or anything like that, but I just want him leaving an impact before the finale. That would be one major thing.
A 2-minute scene where we have Bond getting to the plant in Switzerland, instead of just seeing Tilly and following Tilly, he goes, plants explosives. It's like the beginning. We can tie it back into the beginning where he planted the explosives. And then he goes back up to watch, and then he bumps into Tilly or sees Tilly. And then we have the exact same thing. That way it feels like Bond's doing something more.
Because remember, his original mission in Goldfinger is to observe Goldfinger and figure out how he's smuggling gold out. And he does that, but he never reports that. So he doesn't actually do his mission. He just ends up, Goldfinger just becomes a no problem. Not a problem later. And so like I would kind of like him to finish that portion of the mission or do something towards that rather than just this unsaid, well, now the mission's changed and the whole idea is how do I get out of the stud farm? That would be that, and of course my consternation about the barn scene. If you fix those two things, that automatically jumps up Goldfinger a couple of notches.
Sure.
Just for me. Because
And
I don't want to rewrite that film. I don't want to cast anybody new or anything like that. It's pretty great as it is.
Trim a little bit, add a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things you could do to tweak that. But I wanted to start out, get that one out of the way. But here in the comments, we have another. So let's go to another Sean Connery film.
Yeah, of course.
Let's see if we can fix Diamonds Are Forever.
I have an easy fix for this.
All right. What would you fix?
Put a laugh track over it. We have fixed Diamonds Are Forever.
It's already pretty much a comedy anyway.
Yeah, you and I were talking about this a few weeks back, but there's the part where he like pulls a single button on his shirt and his entire outfit comes off and there's another outfit under the outfit. That feels like a comedic gag. Just throw a laugh track on there. We kill fake Blofeld right at the start with like mud or whatever. Like it's already a joke movie.
I mean, the first guy that he kills with like the mashed potatoes, it's kind of silly.
Yeah, that and the gun slowly rising up out of the mud, like it's ridiculous. Diamonds is a film that I've come to appreciate more because it verges on the goofy and then kind of boring. And I boring to me is worse than bad because at least bad I can do something.
Bad you have emotional investment in.
I
agree.
I think the humor in Diamonds works well. The part where they throw Plenty out of the window and she lands in the pool, and he goes, "How did you know there's a pool?" He's like, "I didn't. There's parts of that film. If we wanted to fix it, I would just do a laugh track, and then I don't know, make Sean drink a couple of cups of coffee or something. That way, he's a little bit more energetic. He looks like he's on the verge of sleep through most of that film.
Not quite as bad as You Only Live Twice, but there's a couple of bits where
I want to like Yolt, but it's such an enthusiastic film. It's so.
There's so much life in that climax that I wish was injected somewhere else in the movie.
No, I mean I have the same right with View to a Kill, where it feels like everyone's about to fall asleep throughout most of that film.
Yeah. Let's see. What would I do to fix Diamonds? Obviously without rewriting the film, because the film I want is the follow-up to Majesty's, where he actually goes on revenge. The dialogue I think is fine for a lot of it because it is really witty. I love Tom Mankiewicz's style of writing. It's been great stuff, but without changing the plot, because my problem with rewriting films is it's always very easy to rewrite an entire movie to make it more interesting to me, which isn't very fair. I don't feel like it's taken the movie on its own terms. And what Diamonds wants to do is just be a sequel to You Only Live Twice and Ignore Majesties. I don't like that idea, but that's what it wants to do. Okay, so what would I fix? Tiffany Case. As much as I love Tiffany, that third act where she becomes an idiot. Oh man!
Just that tape in the butt cheeks and the
and the over the top reaction there. My gosh! Like Tiffany plays and talks a huge game, but the thing is like she actually feels like she has the skills to back up that attitude, and I wish that carried through into the third act. I get that like she's trying to act submissive to Blofeld because like, well, she doesn't have the skills to be able to get out of it. That's fine. But I feel like you could still have that little bit of an edge of just the sassiness that Tiffany had for the rest of it. But that would be the big thing I'd fix.
Yeah. No, I agree. Tiffany Case, I love the performance for the first 2/3 of the film. When she's telling off the van driver at the gas station or whatever, like, I like this.
Keep leaning on that tutor, Charlie, or you'll get a shot in the mouth. That feels like such an American.
That feels like
or like a stylized. It's a stylized American thing. It's what people think we talk like, and some of us do. Yeah. Oh yes, Bert Saxby. Oh my gosh, I love that actor. We mentioned King Kong before, and like that actor has been in a bunch of stuff. Like seriously, go look at his filmography, and it's unfortunate that Diamonds is his last. But yeah, in terms of going up to eliminate Willard White and Bond and the local police, CIA, and everything, yeah, I'm sure I would trust a guy in his late 60s, early 70s to do that job. Like Bert Saxby, he does feel like the head of security. He actually reminds me of so the James Cameron Titanic. You have Billy Zane, and then you have David Warner playing the police guy that runs around as his bodyguard. That's what Bert Saxby reminds me of, is that guy. Except that guy actually felt like he could back up his threat. So I wish Bert had a little bit stronger of a presence with him. I don't know exactly how to fix that without stepping on Wint and Kid's toes, because they're the ones going off and killing people. But like if you had Saxby doing something sadistic, or that might have fixed some things.
Yeah, Diamonds is such a strange film because it feels very disjointed. A lot of the Bond films, I think, have that issue where they feel like a collection of sequences. Like I love Tomorrow Never Dies. That film kind of feels like a collection of sequences at points.
Yeah,
where they're loosely strung together, right? But Diamonds, I soft spot for Diamonds.
Yeah, no, my biggest argument towards that. What you said with Tomorrow Never Dies being a very segmented film. I mentioned this even in the review. We end the motorcycle chase, and then within 2.5 minutes, we start up a kung fu sequence, martial arts sequence. It hurts my brain because we haven't had time to cool down from the awesome motorcycle chase, and it feels like it's very much there just because we have Michelle Yeoh.
Oh yes, there's that, but also after reading a handful of the Fleming novels where they rush to end the book, Tomorrow Never Dies kind of rushes to the end. You think that once they get to Vietnam, it's just kind of like action scene, action scene, action scene, action scene. The film's over.
Yeah, the only real downtime that we have in it is during that segment is Bond restocking. And getting the gear together just before going onto the stealth boat. Like, there's about 4 or 5 minutes with him and Michelle Yeoh over like 2 scenes. And that's all the downtime we get in the third act. I agree with you. Yeah.
But I mean, that film that probably had the most turbulent production of any of the Bond films.
Oh my gosh, it absolutely did. Like we talk a big thing about Thunderball and Never Say Never Again. All the legal issue with that. Never Say Never Again had a really troubled production. That's fascinating. But Tomorrow Never Dies, like, I am surprised they got a competent film out on time. Because they really should.
One that I like a lot
Oh yeah, no, I know a lot of Bond fans, even if they don't love that film, that there's a soft spot for that one.
So it might be higher than Goldeneye for me now. I don't. I maybe.
I know.
It depends.
I think that's blasphemous, but
Truthfully, the soundtrack to Goldeneye is so bad, and I don't like a lot of the romance stuff when they're in Cuba, like that 3-minute scene of Bond brooding on the beach. I'm like, do we need this in this film? No, we don't.
I
Come
do.
on.
I do. I love it.
We need Pierce's hair flowing and a shirt.
Well, because to me that brings the reality back into it. Because like, if he never had a moment to think, this was my former best friend, you know, and I've got to figure out, like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to kill him. But you can see that Bond, even when he says it to Natalia, that like, this is what keeps me alive, sort of a thing. That doesn't mean he's not troubled by it. I feel like you absolutely need that scene, but I will concede I can understand how the music brings it down.
Oh, the Eric Serra soundtrack. It sounds like someone farting into a microphone while someone slapping a bass. It's rough. I never liked the soundtrack to Leon the Professional, which Goldeneye takes so much from, and then it's like, what if we had the worst ending track to any of the credits that they've ever done?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you, Granular Spirit. I do not dislike that scene at all. It's actually probably my favorite Pierce acting moment in all 4 of his films. But Pierce actually has a number of good ones, because like there's him and Terry Hatcher in Tomorrow Never Dies. I think he does a fantabulous job there.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of good confrontation bits with Elektra. And even in Die Another Day, you have him and M.
That's great.
In the first half. There's a couple of conversations they have. And then he has a conversation with General Moon towards the beginning. I love all that stuff. And so when Pierce can actually act in the films, I eat it up.
Yeah. Infused, I don't think that's a hot take. The GoldenEye Overture is the best part of that soundtrack. And
absolutely,
especially with the game, it's such a recognizable piece of Bond music now. Because it's so bombastic, and the funky bass line works for me when they moved it in there. We were joking about this, but the scene where it's the race through the French mountains with the bicyclists, and again, someone's like, it sounds like someone farting, and now whenever I hear it, it sounds like Primus, but if Primus took a bunch of drugs before trying to play, like, it sounds really rough.
Yeah, I can't argue with you with that. But even the good stuff in that score, besides the GoldenEye Overture, because like a lot of people have some fondness for the music in the archives leading into the tank chase. I get that, but at the same time, even before I knew that stuff was replaced very late in the production, I felt like it was so different to the rest of the score that it just did not jar with me that well. And I just don't think it's that exciting on its own to listen to. Like, it needs the visuals to make that work. But and there are certain versions of the Bond theme that you can listen without the visuals. GoldenEye Overture, for example, you can absolutely listen to that without even having that film in your head, and it's an awesome piece. Live and Let Die, the version of the Bond theme when he's doing the taxi cab into Harlem.
Oh, it's so
I can listen to that
great.
Just by itself.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah.
So I am absolutely with you. GoldenEye Overture is the one song I'd want to keep from that soundtrack, other than Tina Turner. And I do like the gun barrel music.
Like GoldenEye.
That's nice too.
Yeah, the kind of rockiness.
Okay, I say the one thing, but then I will always. Yeah, I say the one thing, but then I always think of like little things. There's a track, "Run, Shoot, and Jump," which plays twice in the film. It's the piece of music. It is in the archives, but it sounds like that was originally composed for the end of the film, when Bond and Trevelyan are going to go up the Arecibo Observatory, and you just have that da 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 da. I love that bit. But yeah, there are very few bits in that overall soundtrack I like.
Yeah, it's a rough one. Before we move on to it, the film I would fix, Majesties. I would trim 10 minutes out of that film. We're getting rid of these Sir Hilary Bray sleeping around scenes. I think it kills the pacing for the film, and it makes you lose motivation for the whole Tracy and Bond thing. Here's where we cut it. We cut it after the lady writes on his thigh, and he goes, and then we can just have a scene of him leaving that door with the numbers on there. It's already there. We don't have to film anything new. We just boop.
Okay, so you don't even want it to be like gone from the film as an idea. You just don't feel like we need to see it.
We don't need to see it. I don't think it adds anything to the movie. Plus, dubbing over Lazenby is such a. I don't like it. You know, I have never heard
a convincing argument from anybody about why he needs to be dubbed for that sequence.
I've heard people try to say, "Oh, it's because he's such a great agent that he can change his way." That's crap. That's okay. So was Lazenby a good enough actor for it?
No, let me play devil's advocate there. He might be good enough to impersonate Sir Hilary Bray's voice. Okay. Why does he need to do that?
Yeah, exactly. No one's seen him yet, so why?
Nobody's seen him yet. Blofeld deals with an intermediary to the College of Arms, so it's not like Blofeld's ever met Sir Hilary Bray or listened to him over the phone. Why do we need to do anything with the voice?
Yeah. So I would just trim out. Again, we can have the scene where he's introduced to the girls and they do the thing about,
because I do want him sleeping around. I don't feel like he loses too much sympathy for me because Tracy would understand that like part of Bond's tool set is his sexuality. And so if he can charm somebody into giving him information, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. It's less, I guess for me, it's less about the emotional thing there as much as I don't think it really adds anything to the film. Right. I think it's kind of played up as like a gag thing, almost like a Sean Connery thing a little bit.
And I do kind of agree with you that like the part in the movie that feels like it drags to me the most is that central 30 to 40 minutes. Because when we get from the College of Arms and he gets to Peace Gloria, I feel like the movie only really starts to pick back up when he's skiing out of the building.
Yeah, the elevator shaft escape and the skiing out and all of that.
Other than his couple of conversations with Blofeld, where it does start to pick back up again. But no, I agree with you. We do spend a lot of time on Peace Gloria, and I feel like there's some way to trim that down. Yeah, just for pacing's sake.
Cutting a chunk of that, we can still keep the scene where Draco's guy gets caught and killed. And we, Bond sees that, but which I think that this is something people don't really think about, but that helps to set up why he is obviously his daughter is stuck there, but that sets up why he's so quick to be like, okay, we're gonna go raid the base, right? Because he's like, I've already been keeping tabs on you, and I know this here. And
we're told that Draco and Blofeld are rivals, crime bosses against each other. It's nice to see some evidence of that. Like that Draco might actually have a personal reason beyond his daughters there to want to take down Blofeld.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree.
That's the one that's easiest for me to think of trimming. Aside from that, this would be a harder one to do, but I would trim out the romance from For Your Eyes Only. I don't like that romance at all. I don't. To me, it feels like Roger's too old and she's too young, and it feels like a father-daughter thing. But then he's trying to sleep with her, and that's creepy.
Yeah, it doesn't help that they have another character in that movie where the whole joke is that she's too young, and that actress was only a year younger than Carol Bouquet. Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you there. If there are two Bond films where he doesn't need to do a romance, it's Eyes and View. Yeah. I don't like the romance in View to a Kill either.
The worst part is how the film ends with Q peeping on them with the robot dog thing, which I'm like, I didn't forget this was here, but I was dreading it.
I don't love it. I don't love that sequence. The one image I like is when Roger throws the Talon.
Yeah,
that feels right. Since A View to a Kill is not interested in celebrating Roger's tenure and being an end to that actor, at least it has that. Yeah.
But so I would probably trim that out of For Your Eyes Only, just because I like that film a lot, but that's one of the hitch-ups. There's like, she's too young, he's too old, this feels creepy. And plus I set up the father-daughter thing after her parents are killed.
Well, that's not, the romance is not, it's shown a couple of times through the movie, but you never feel like that is their dynamic.
No. Yeah.
No, I I think I would agree with you there. Like, I'm trying to think, like, how would I end that film? Because the ending scene is actually one of my bugbears about it, with
Mhm.
the whole parrot thing, doing the not Margaret Thatcher. It's funny, but it almost feels too much for the rest of that movie.
Yes. It feels like that would have been a fine ending for Moonraker or Spy Who Loved Me, where
Yeah,
they do the
Moonraker.
exact same gag in Spy Who
They
Loved
do
Me.
the same gag. And
Yeah.
that's part of the problem. Is I actually feel like For Your Eyes Only is far closer to Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker than some people give it credit for.
Mhm.
When you talk to most Bond fans, they talk about it like this great tonal reassertion that, like, we're putting Bond back into the serious. And I'm like, yes, but let's not pretend like there's not very overt Roger things happening there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that jars with me a bit. As much as I love the movie, um, yeah, it does feel like it whiplashes a bit.
Well, because we had some genuine kind of light horror scenes in that film, like all the underwater stuff where they get
Yeah.
attacked by the guys in the suits. Like that's something that I remember as a kid. I was like, that looks kind of scary. But then, yeah, the end with the talking parrot talking to not Margaret Thatcher, and it's like, oh well,
Yep.
it.
And
such a
BB that
BB
has
thing.
such an appetite for just about anybody that moves except Julian Glover. I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah.
Well, she knew his past where he had he was killed trying to find the Holy Grail, and then he came back to life to be a smuggler in Greece.
I don't know. I feel like I've known too many party girls that are like BB Doll for me to like really get along with her.
No, that character is grating, which I think the film does the right thing of, eventually she's like, oh, I need to take some control and does something,
Yeah.
which is
If you
nice.
have
Like
to have
she's not
her,
just flat.
yeah, if you have to have her in the film, I actually like how the film goes about it.
Hmm.
And especially just because I can't think of another Bond where sleeping with somebody in their early 20s would be a big ask. But 50s Roger Moore, yeah, that's a problem.
It's he said, let's go get ice cream, but they were somewhere where it was snowy and cold. That's the weird thing to me.
And I've been to Cortina. It's absolutely lovely. But yeah, the last thing I want while I'm there is ice cream.
Yeah. So okay, so we've corrected a couple of films without drastically changing the actors. Like,
Corrected.
as I say,
Yeah.
corrected. If we had the ability to trim to make the film less
Yeah.
lumpy, Living Daylights is the one that's the one that if they had changed the script a little bit, I think that could be the perfect Bond film. That's the thing.
License to Kill,
That
the ending to be changed. I don't think Kaylee thinks so.
Oh no, she likes the winking fish in the weird table. We did not like Talisa Soto. I never
Yeah.
liked her in the film. I think that her entire shtick is that she'll sleep with whatever bad guy has the money, but the film doesn't really tell you that until the last 2 minutes of the film,
Sure.
right? So it's I would have License to Kill. My biggest gripe is still the ninjas. I can take a winking fish. I can take a creepy table in the villain's lair. It's hard for me to watch that and then just pop out.
Yeah. No, I do agree that like the ending of License to Kill needs some smoothing out because I do want to have a moment where Bond talks to Felix about what he just went through for him. There's barely anything about the ramifications of this. And like, I don't mind Bond being accepted back into the service right at the very end, that just being a mention sort of a thing. That's fine. But like Bond and Felix really need to have a heart about that. And it doesn't have to be very long. But the Pam thing, I know I brought that up in the review, that my problem with Bond and Pam's bit at the end, Pam is pissed off that Bond would look at another woman throughout that whole film, it seems like. And for her to just break down like that, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure that I buy that you guys have spent enough time and have that big of a connection for you to do that. And if it's really that impactful to Pam, Bond needs to do more than just jump into the pool and pull her down with him to like win her back over. I always felt like that was a really odd note to end on for that film.
Yeah, that felt like a Roger thing. I will say that Pam is in a lot of the movie, right? She goes
Yes.
to Isthmus City. She's part of the larger plot at the end of the film. And you have to keep in mind, it's less that, Bond looked at the other girl. It's that she comes in and says, James was with me last night. And then she barges in and goes, I love you, or whatever her line is to try to emotionally manipulate him or whatever. But, I want to think more about how she nearly killed Q and Bond with the X-ray Polaroid. We talked about that. Like, how does that? That's like a Roger Moore comical gag.
Yeah, there are some Q gadgets that you're just like, okay, when would that ever be useful? Like the couch in Living Daylights, where like the guy just goes in between the cushions. How does that work?
Or the magnetic tea board, the tea tray thing.
Well, he's going to use that for a tea party. He did say that.
Oh, he did.
I don't know why the bolas need to be ready for Army Day, I think is what he says in Moonraker. But yeah, taking a picture that doesn't even take like normal pictures. It takes, the skeletal bit with the laser coming out. When would that ever be useful?
That's like a Courage the Cowardly Dog gag, like character gets hit by lightning, woo, and they're like bones and everything. And
sure,
I don't know. For the impractical gadgets, there are some, like, when is Q ever going to use the wheelchair machine gun or wheelchair rocket launcher? When is that ever going to happen? I don't know, but
well, I will tell you when that happens. When you make a very mediocre superheroes movie starring Shaquille O'Neal that has an assistant that's in a wheelchair that whole movie.
Oh no!
That's when you're
reminding me of that. Was that Steel? What was it called?
Steel. Yep, Steel.
Steel. Yeah, I've seen it.
With Sparky. That's her name. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's
those are the kinds of movies that come to mind whenever somebody tries to argue that like such and such recent film is like the worst film they've ever seen. And I'm like, have you seen this movie? Like, that's part of my rotating 10.
Yes.
Where I'm like,
well,
no, whatever you've seen recently, this is worse.
Well, watch the Minecraft film and you may disagree.
Well,
you may watch that and go.
That I fully admit could be a thing. I mean, I've met the director, Jared Hess. He's a great guy. And part of my problem with him as a director is just entirely a personal beef thing. I did grow up for a little bit of time in Preston, Idaho. I was pissed he put that movie on the map and everybody started asking questions about it and making Napoleon Dynamite jokes whenever that got brought up. But yeah, I haven't liked much of Jared Hess's stuff. No. Great guy. His wife has also directed one of my wife's favorite guilty pleasure films. So like, we can't hate them, but I don't doubt that Minecraft movie was a chore to sit through, given that I haven't liked any of Hess's movies.
Yeah, it's rough, but I mean, that's basketball players trying to be actors. None of them have ever been good at acting. It's I don't want to see Larry Bird in a film.
You say that, but there's a lot of people our age that will kill you for saying anything bad about Space Jam.
Space Jam sucks. I'll say it right here, right now. YouTube chat. I hate movie. Space Jam. Space Jam is like it only exists because Who Framed Roger Rabbit was really good, and all of the things that tried to emulate Who Framed Roger Rabbit, none of them have done anywhere near as good as that. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit is good because it's got great technical stuff, and they just copied the script to Chinatown, which is a fantastic script. So that's why Who Framed Roger Rabbit is really good. Space Jam is like, okay, we've got the
I don't know. I think I can't be too hypocritical here because I definitely had animated and live action movies I grew up with that are not good, but I just have a nostalgia for them. And there's a lot of people our age, especially, that have that. And you do kind of wonder, like, where's your common sense for liking the movie? Space Jam, I have watched that fairly recently. I never really loved it as a kid. I still don't particularly like it now. And I'm just like, what is the appeal here other than seeing Looney Tunes here? And even then, Looney Tunes are a lot funnier when they're by themselves.
Yes. This might be sacrilege, but the only live action with animated characters as part of the shtick that I enjoyed that wasn't Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I do have a soft spot for Looney Tunes back in action, even though I know it's not very good.
It's not,
but
I do think it's better than Space Jam. Yep. Yes. And that's part of the reason is I think it's a step up from Space Jam. Having Timmy in it as a spy is great. Brendan Fraser, of course, I grew up with him, so I think it's fun. And there is a lot of poking fun of other Warner Brothers things in there that kind of love. Joan Cusack's in the movie for just a little bit, and I love that actress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, and we have the Warner Brothers show up as a gag thing, kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which I think is part of the fun there. But bad films, good films. The Bond films, I would not categorize any of them aside from maybe Never Say Never Again as bad films. For as much disdain as I have for A View to a Kill, that film at least will not make me like I make it into 20 minutes and Never Say Never Again, and I'm like, I'm done. When Bond's having the fight with the geriatric guy at the health clinic, I'm like, I'm done.
See, that's such a sad thing because that's Pat Roach.
I know, but still,
you and I have talked Indiana Jones. We know how much that guy is important, but
yes,
I'm not going to disagree with you there. Casino Royale, 67, Never Say Never Again, View to a Kill, Spectre. I have a hard time sitting through those films in one sitting, but I can do it, which automatically means it's not the worst film ever made. Which to me, the two worst films ever made are Meet the Spartans and Son of the Mask. And Son of the Mask, I didn't actually finish. But Meet the Spartans, that is the only film where I actually sat for 10 minutes and then turned it off. I could not deal with it at all.
I had the same experience trying to play Crackdown 3 when that came out. Or I booted that game up and it was Terry Crews just screaming at the player immediately. I'm like, okay, uninstalled. I didn't even play the first cutscene.
I might actually like that. I've always loved Terry Crews.
I do. It's just that when the game opens up with him screaming really loudly, I'm like, no, this is the previous two games were not like this. I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not the only Space Jam hater here. We're not the only Space Jam haters. Granular Spirit is on our team here for not liking Space Jam.
Recast Priscilla Barnes. I never thought about recasting her, but the Della fawning over Bond sort of a thing. I always just kind of figured that was their friendship before that, but I don't know how Felix would be comfortable with that.
Felix is just watching going, yeah, this is happening.
Especially because, so we mentioned John Gardner earlier. So there is a John Gardner book. I think it is for special services. I could be wrong about that, but there is a John Gardner book where Bond actually sleeps with Felix Leiter's daughter as part of that. And Leiter actually gives Bond his blessing to do that. And that really rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, what?
This is why I don't have any desire to read the continuation books. I hear that.
There are some really good ones, but when you know that stuff is in some of John Gardner's books, it makes you less inclined.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he drives the Saab.
All
the cars you could pick.
Some people, it's named after an airplane. That's why he's driving it. It's called the Dragon.
I don't care.
Eventually,
it's really silly. It's really silly.
Please don't bring Bentley back for the next Bond film. Just don't do that because they're such bad cars these days.
Oh, well, we're on 2 hours now. We should probably wrap this up. It's just been a fun afternoon to mostly talk about Bond. Get to talk about some of those news things that have been going on. And this was never meant to be a big thing a mandatory live stream for everybody to watch. I just wanted to introduce Paul here, give you a chance to check out what he's like. Go see his channel. I'll definitely put a comment in once this video is over to link over to his channel. Give him some love. He's not the same thing that I do. For those of you that are joining in much later, he does watches. He does a lot of guns, and so his is not the analytical movie thing that I do. But
I do have a video book review of The Diamond Smugglers, which is all of I think about 3 minutes long.
Yeah. Yeah. But I value his opinions, particularly when we talk about watches and we talk about guns. When we talk about guns in these films, and Paul and I are becoming fast friends at this point, hanging out quite a bunch of times. We saw Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade together in theaters a few weeks ago because it came back in this area, and just had a blast.
Oh yeah, we
with
got to
that.
see some errors in the film that you wouldn't notice unless you were watching it in a nice copy that's very big, like dates
yeah.
wrong in books and this and that. But that's part of the fun. That was a great time. And for $5, it was hard to beat the tickets for that film.
Yeah, and I love going to watch retro movies in theaters. I always feel like it's a new experience. I've done Jaws that way. I've done Superman the movie that way. I recommend it if you guys ever get a chance to see things like that. And the crowning thing, I want to watch one of the classic Bond films in theaters because I got into the fandom in 2004, so all of them had already been released. And here in the States, they are really not good about making those films readily available unless you live in LA, Chicago, or New York. For the rest of us, we're just left out to dry. And at this point, I wouldn't care even if it was A View to a Kill in theaters. I would still want to go watch it because I've never seen one of the 20 in theaters.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if they're going to be doing any local showings because, like, I would love to see Thunderball in theaters. This is
we've got
anniversary of Thunderball.
We've got 4 films celebrating anniversary years at this time. We've got Thunderball, we've got View to a Kill, we've got Goldeneye, and we've got Spectre. I don't relish seeing Spectre again in theaters. View to a Kill, I would just see if it was the only one. But if I had my pick, either Thunderball or Goldeneye, or in the perfect world, both. I would love to see those films on a big screen.
Worst comes to weird, I can buy a projector. We can throw some sheets in my backyard. Watch the movie that way.
It would be fun. I actually have a friend who works at a production studio office of her own. That's actually how we watched Dune last night.
Oh, wow.
But that got me thinking that, like, I've got to have some other friends that have access to, like, really cool setups like that, so that we could just do that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's the way to do it. I think it'd be awesome. Yeah.
No, Granular Spirit. There are so many other films from 1999 that I would rather watch than Phantom Menace, and I say that given that I have seen Phantom Menace in theaters 9 times. I would so rather watch World Is Not Enough, Mummy, The Matrix.
The Mummy on big screen would be fun.
That has come around a couple of times, and I always had to work that weekend or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. But yeah, World's Not Enough. I would love to see that. But basically, any of the 20, I would take A View to a Kill or Die Another Day. It's all based off of, there was this interview, I think, that Yaron Crabbe did, where he said, like, there's nothing better than sitting in a darkened theater and having the gun barrel come on screen. And, like, thankfully, the recent Craig films have started to do that. But I wanted to see a proper film where I knew the gun barrel was going to be at the front. I want to see that on a big screen. And, the traditional blood coming down. There's no pretentious text behind it. Afterward, the dead are alive. No, I just want to see that open up into a big iris with the rest of the film. And then I get the next 2 hours to watch a film I've seen dozens upon dozens of times.
Yeah, Tobias, whenever the next one comes out, I'm sure that I don't know where you live, obviously, but whenever they announce the next one and it's leading up to it, I guarantee that you'll see more of the films coming back in to kind of try to get people to go to it. Do it. Even a bad Bond film or a rougher Bond film on the big screen is still a Bond film on the big screen.
On the big screen.
And I doubt that you'll see theaters that go, hey, we're showing Spectre. Like, that's not going to happen. It's going to be the big milestone film.
Yeah, it's going to be the classic ones. They're going to advertise. We're going to do Roger Moore. We're going to do Sean.
Here's Goldfinger. Here's Spy Who Loved Me. Here's, this and that.
Yeah, and I was actually
one that I have seen
Oh,
screening.
yeah.
I haven't seen them, but Majesties is one that gets screened a lot here in the United States. And if you live in Europe, it's easier to find Bond films on theater than they are here in the U.S.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. But just to kind of close us out here, some people have asked, can we do like a live stream with you or some sort of a watch party for one of the films? I have absolutely been tinkering with that idea, and I would love to do it. We have a Discord group that we do. That's a lot of fun. We could do it through that or something like that. Or I could do something like Video Tasties where we actually have a watch party live with something. The big thing I would say is that when I decide that we're in a position to do that, I'm not going to pick the movie. You guys are going to pick the movie.
Yeah.
Because
and to leapfrog off of that, join the Discord server. Join
Yes.
Steven's Discord server. That is a good thing to do. If you're a fan of the channel, obviously it's great that you're here in the live stream, but join the Discord server if you're on Discord, because there's a whole lot of Bond discussions that happen over there and eventual screening parties, very likely.
Yeah. And as part of the Discord, because I don't have a Patreon, I don't think I'm big enough to justify that. But as part of the Discord, one of the things I tend to throw out a lot is if I have a video in the queue, Discord people get a chance to see it sometime before the rest of the community does.
Yeah.
So that's my plug-in for there.
Yeah. And as someone who's just active in the Discord, it's fun. There are other Bonders there, including people who also like The Spy Who Loved Me, or a different copy of the Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah. No, I think that's probably about enough for today. Let's go ahead and call it here. Mm-hmm. This was great to hang out with you guys. Thanks for joining on. Live streams to me are still kind of a new thing to try just because they are so disorganized. I am so used to scripted things, and I will continue to do scripted things as the main content of the channel. But sometimes it is just kind of fun to get with some mates and chat for an afternoon.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's been a fun time, and I hope that we've provided some value to our wonderful viewers that have tuned in here.
Mm-hmm. No. So hopefully if work goes well this week, you probably won't get the next ranking video on Friday, but probably the next Friday before I leave. And then after that, I've got the Roger Moore Dissecting Bond compilation that I have finished. And so I'm waiting for the right moment to release that. And the nice thing about that is that's all Blu-ray footage for the official films. Ooh. So they look very nice. The file size is stupid huge, and the rendering took forever, but I did it. But yeah, so look forward to that stuff. Check out Paul, and if you are part of Paul's crew and just came over here to support him, I've got a few things that maybe you'll like. I don't know, maybe.
Well, I know that my folks that were in here are Bond fans, so I'm sure that you'll have a couple of new subscribers from them.
Yep. All right. So take care, folks, and hopefully it won't be too long before the next James Bond ranking video, which will be posters. The Bond posters. Which ones are my favorite?
Maybe some of these. Who knows?
I can promise you at least one of those is on there. I won't tell you which.
I know which.
Yeah.
I have a strong sneaking suspicion.
Nope. Thanks for being with us, guys, and take care.